As he adjusted the copier to reprint another page, he had to admit that Mara was right. It wasn't only about the money. Not always. Just most of the time. Oh, hey, fourth graders. I am so into this book. Holy smokes. Kind of think, does Greg like Mara? Are they just friends? What is going on? I can't put this book down. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I was just getting ready to read, so I am so glad that you're here today. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. So as you can tell, I just finished chapter 16, so we're going to start with chapter 17 today. And I feel like I'm just learning more and more about Mara as we go on, so I'm really excited. So today, our only vocabulary word is efficient, and it is on page 165. And if you look at that picture, there is one thing that that person is doing that is more efficient. That ball is more efficient than that square, which means it's working better. There's something about it that's working better than the squares. Since it's round, it's easier to roll. So in real life, if you're more efficient, you're working it in a more well-organized way or in a more competent way. So in a way that makes more sense. So I created my own sentence down below. I challenge you to do the same thing. I think it'd be cool if we all started doing that and took it to class with our teachers later on. So I said the student was efficient and completed all of their work in a few hours. So hope you're one of those efficient students out there. What are we learning today? Oh my goodness, my face is in the way. What are we learning today? I can use text evidence to describe the main characters in a story. So if you can see down here, we have something new. We are going to use a character web to kind of organize our thoughts today. I like to organize them too when I'm writing. So today in our middle is going to be Mara. So, say when I'm done with this lesson, if I wanted to go write a paragraph about Mara, it should be super easy after I organized all those thoughts. All right, today we are gonna start on chapter 17, which is called Selling. Mara took 8 copies of her new comic book home from Greg's on Saturday night. She gave one to her mom, one to her dad, and one to her big brother Tommy. Everyone was impressed. Mara, her mother said, "This is amazing. Of course, I always knew you had art talent, but this is a wonderful little book, like a fairy tale. And I love unicorns, don't you?" I mean, of course you do, because here's the book, and who made it? You did. My Mara is an author. This is amazing. Mara thought so too. And that's why she autographed 1 copy. So an autograph is like, if I had this autograph by the author, he would have signed it, and that is autographed. So she autographed 1 copy and tucked it into the zippered pocket of her backpack. And on Monday morning, when she went to meet her friend Allison on the way to the bus stop, she gave it to her. Allison sat right down on her front step and read it. And when Allison was done reading, she said, "This is so good." Mara beamed and said, "Thanks." As the bus came around the corner, Mara said, "You better leave that at home. Just stick it in your mailbox or something." But Allison said, "It's okay. I won't show it to anyone. Promise." She slipped it inside the front cover of her social studies book and then said, and then they both ran and got on the bus. Mara had watched Allison's face as she read the story and looked at the pictures. And sitting on the bus, she started counting kids. There were 47 students on the bus by the time they got to school. And Mara found herself thinking a little like Greg, because she felt sure that she could have sold every single boy and girl on the bus a copy of her new comic book. She could have been well on her way towards being a recognized artist and author, except it wasn't allowed. As usual, Mrs. Davenport had been very efficient, so she's doing a really good job in having it already done. She works really well. She had prepared a written version of the all-school announcement she had made on Friday. She had made it shorter, more to the point, and it was printed up in large type. And by Monday, a copy was hanging on every bulletin board in every hallway and every classroom at Ashworth Intermediate School. Announcement. Some of our students have been making small comic books and then bringing them to school and selling them to their friends. This is not permitted. Our town school committee has a strict policy about what may and may not be sold at school. Starting right now, these little comic books may not be brought to school, they may not be created at school, and they certainly may not be sold at school. Thank you all for your cooperation, Mrs. Davenport, Principal. Sitting in social studies, Mara stared at a copy of the announcement. She read it, and then she read it again. And one sentence stood out to her. So we're going to stop. I see that stop sign. Focus question. What do we learn about Mara from her words and actions? This is a skill we worked on a lot through Lunch Money, so you guys should be pros at this point. Hopefully you don't need my help at all. So just think about through this page, what do we learn about Mara? Our town school committee has a strict policy about what may and may not be sold at school. May and may not. So that means some things were okay to sell at school and some things were not. And the school committee got to choose? Interesting. In her mind, Mara began arguing with the school committee, imagining what she would say to these people. Because really, what was wrong with selling their comics to other kids? Nothing, or at least nothing she could see, certainly not with her little comic books, or Greg's either. And sitting there thinking in Miss Sanborn's class, Mara happened to look over and notice the front of Brittany's social studies book, except she couldn't really see the world cultures book. On the first day of school, Mrs. Sanborn had required that all the kids take covers onto their new books. And the glossy book covers Mrs. Sanborn had handed out were loaded with pictures of high school athletes wearing Nike shoes and Nike shirts and Nike shorts and hats and warm-ups. And Mara realized that every social studies book so we're going to pause. So on this next slide, we're going to see that character web that I was talking about. So that focus question we have is, what do we learn about Mara from her words and actions? So I'm going to move my little screen really quick. It says, this is that skill we've been working on, and it was the skill at the beginning of the lesson. I can use text evidence to describe the main characters in a story. So I would say Mara is one of the main characters, her and Greg. So I went ahead and already made mine. So I would like you to pause the video and you to make your character web so that we can do this together. So let's hop back to the beginning, because I think even from the first few pages, we can see some of the things that we can learn about Mara. So let me clear all of that really quick and go back. Okay, so I think from this page, what really jumped out to me is her mom, all of those things that she said. So I want you to look back right here. Mara, her mother, said, "This is amazing. Of course, I always knew you had art talent." So what is a descriptive word for someone who is good at art? It's artistic, right? So that's the first thing I'm going to write down. So I wrote down that she is very artistic. All right, so the next thing that we can look at is, my little arrow. Forgot I had that out. Okay, let's look on the next page. Okay, so when she is showing her book to her friends, it says, "This is so good," and it says she beamed. Do you guys know what the word beamed means? This is me beaming. Like, I am so excited. She is so happy. So that obviously means a lot to her. So the next thing I'm going to write down is that Mara cares about her work. So I'm going to write down she cares about her work, or she's proud. Let's do she's proud of her work. She is proud of her work. So she's artistic and she's proud of her work. And this last one that I'm going to find in this chapter is that last page that we stopped on. And I think this really popped out at me. We're going to start on this page, but let's read a little bit further right here. I think my arrow is right where we need to be. So she said, our town school committee has a strict policy about what may and may not be sold at school. May and may not. So that meant some things were okay and some things were not. I'm going to skip a little bit. In her mind, Mara began arguing with the school committee, imagining what she would say to those people, because really, what was wrong with selling their comic books to other kids? Nothing, or at least that she could see, certainly not with her little comic book or Greg's either. And sitting there thinking, so let's dig a little deeper. So she's starting to think like, man, this isn't right. So let's keep going. Start here. The classroom was trying to sell her something. Oh, so they said, some things are okay to sell, some things are not. They're trying to sell her something. The classroom was trying to sell her something, and she thought, I guess the school committee decided that was okay. Then in the gym, a couple of periods later, Mara saw posters about a fundraiser. And I know in our district, one of the fundraisers we do is that Major Saver card. It's like an event where money is raised. So you might raise it for your school. So fundraiser. Mara saw posters about a fundraiser for new uniforms for the soccer and basketball teams. They weren't posters kids had made. These were large, bright, printed posters, and every one showed beautiful full-color pictures of M&Ms, Three Musketeer bars, and Skittles. So someone must have decided that was okay to buy and sell candy at school. Outside during gym, Mara took a good look at the new scoreboard on the soccer field. It was all red and white, and it was trying to sell her a Coke. Next to the door on the way back inside, a big black and blue machine was trying to sell her a bottle of sports drink. And in the cafeteria at lunchtime, a long banner was selling pizza because it was Domino's Pizza Day. And over in the corner, a machine was selling frosty cans of juice. Seeing all of this got Mara thinking. But then, during 7th grade language arts class, something happened that got Mara really excited. And when she saw Greg in the hall, right after school, she ran up and grabbed him by the arm and blurted out, "Did Mrs. Lindahl pass out something in your language arts class today?" Greg looked at Mara as if she had just escaped from the zoo. So in my head, he's like, he shook his head, and Mara said, "No? Well, look at what Mrs. Pelham passed out last period to every kid in the room. Here." Greg took the paper she held out. He looked at the front, flipped it over to look at the back cover, then turned the page and said, "Yeah? So what?" Mara looked at him, disgusted. "So what? Don't you get it? Think about what Mrs. Davenport said about selling stuff at school, about selling comic books. Now look again." Greg looked again, and this time he got it, because what Greg held in his hands was the new flyer from the book club, a full-color 8-page advertisement. The ad was selling books, more than 75 different titles. There were classics and there were Newbery Award winners, but there were also Garfield and X-Men books and Scooby-Doo cartoon books and Calvin and Hobbes collection. There were magic trick books, drawing books, and even books that came with toys like bobbleheads, keychains, and little silver necklaces. The book club flyer was like all the other ones Greg had looked at once a month, ever since first grade, because once a month, The teachers handed out the flyers, and then the kids placed their orders, and then the teachers collected the money. And where did all this buying and selling happen? At school. So I think one last thing that we can learn about Mara through all this, we learned that she is artistic, she is proud of her work. I think she really cares about things being fair. She dug deep and she saw all these other people doing this stuff that they're not allowed to do. So I'm going to write that she cares about fairness. She wants it to be fair for everybody. She'll follow the rules as long as they make sense. So, look at that, guys. You can go and write your own paragraph about Mara now. You've got 3 facts about her, and that is so cool. So, your journal entry for today is, what does Mara notice about the book club flyer, and how does this make her feel? How does it make her feel? So we kind of just went over that. What was the big thing? She was disgusted when Greg didn't see it. And so what did she notice, and how does that make her feel? Man, guys, that went by so fast today. I am so excited you came to read with me today, and I hope you can get this journal entry done to have ready with your teacher later on today, and make sure you are efficient and work hard and get all that you need to done today. Have a great weekend.